Hello class and welcome back to Sketch Science. Today we're going to be going over resources. Now you might be asking, what is resources? What do they do? What are they for? Well, resources are something in the environment that everything uses. All the living things use resources to stay living. Now, going forward, so resources can be either living or non-living. Remember those words abiotic and biotic. Abiotic is the non-living resources, and biotic are the living resources. First, we're going to be going over the abiotic. Now, abiotic, remember, is the non-living resources. If it's non-living, what would you think they might be? Maybe water, wind, or air, soil, rocks. Any of these things that are in the environment that things use, things take care of, things need, all of this stuff that's non-living would be an abiotic resource. Now, those are important to the environment as much as living as biotic are. Because think about it. If you're a fish in a lake, if you're a fish under the water, you need, one, the water. This water around you is all abiotic resources. All of this water around you are things you need. Fish can't live if it's not in water. It has to drink the water, it has to swim in the water, it has to do all these things. As well as these bubbles, the oxygen in the water. Yes, fish do breathe oxygen, just like people do, just like other animals. It needs that oxygen to survive. If there's not enough oxygen, fish dies. If there's not enough water, fish dies. The fish makes its home in beds of rocks, maybe. Maybe the fish will go down in the rocks. That is an abiotic resource. The fish have to share that. So water, air, oxygen, rocks, all these things that are not living, but animals, plants, these things still use them, are your abiotic resources. Next, we'll go over biotic. Biotic resources. That could be your plants, your fungi, bacteria, animals. They're all a form of resource. Because if you think about it, animals eat each other. Animals eat plants. Plants and animals rely on each other to take care of each other, to live. They can live together in harmony, or they can eat each other. They can do all these things. If something dies, it's still a biotic resource. Because if something's dead, other things can still eat it. Fungi can break it back down into the soil. It's a resource that just keeps going around. It's a cycle. Biotic resources are just as important as abiotic. If you go back to what we did before, where we talked about individuals, species, populations, communities, an ecosystem, all of these things go from the smallest to the biggest. So smallest, remember, 1. Species is all of the same kind that can reproduce. Populations is how many of that species are in an area. Communities are how many populations. And ecosystems is all of these, or this entire community, plus the non-living, plus the abiotic. So resources are shared all the way throughout the ecosystem. The biggest part of it. Sure, an individual might use resources. Species might use certain resources to stay alive. Certain animals eat certain things. Populations have to share a resource. Because think about it. If you have all of one kind of species, if you've got 500 giraffes in one area and they all eat the same thing, well, yes, that individual will eat it. That species is known to eat it, so all of that population probably tries to eat the same thing. Communities. Giraffes might not be the only thing that eats that thing. Like if we're talking about grass. Giraffes, yeah, they eat grass, but a lot of other animals do too. So not only does that population have to use it, communities use it. Then you think about the ecosystem as a whole. That grass holds the soil together. The soil is important for other plants. So that one thing, that grass, it's important for an individual, an entire species. The population and species kind of go hand in hand, but there may be more than one population that needs it. The entire community as a whole will need it. And then finally, the ecosystem relies on it because it's a large part of it. That's where we come to a term called competition. Competition is a fancy word for saying two or more individuals or populations that share a common limited resource. Two or more individuals or populations that share a common limited resource. What does that mean for us? Well, like I said before, if you have that many giraffes, or if you have a bunch of mice, or if you have a bunch of hawks, or if you have a bunch of this, that, or the other thing, if you've got more than one of something and they're sharing a resource, be it back before when we were talking about fish, there's only so much water in a lake. There's only so much air in the lake. If you think about if you have 5 people, these 5 people have to share their food. If they were given 5 pieces of cake, if these 5 people were each given a piece of cake, everybody's happy. Yes, there are only 5 pieces of cake. There's 5 people. So each person gets their own piece. It's still a limited resource, but there's enough for it. If you were to add in an extra 3 pieces, so if you were to put in 3 more, then there's plenty to go around. You could have extra people there. So if you had 3 extra pieces of cake going there, competition, nobody's fighting over it. There's 3 extra pieces. No one's fighting over anything. You could even invite 3 more friends to come to the party. You could invite 3 more friends. But if you were to take a piece away instead, so now this person's piece goes away, now there's going to be competition, right? Because if this person doesn't fight for their piece of cake, they're going to be left out. Yes, you could say just share the different cake across the people, but you're trying to split 4 pieces 5 ways. Someone's going to be left out. That's competition. There's a limited number of pieces, and there's extra organisms. There's extra people. That's what competition is. These 5 people are now fighting over 4 pieces of cake. Somebody's going to lose out. These resources are limited. There's only so many pieces. So competition, 2 or more individuals or populations, because this could go on a larger scale. You could have cows, deer, and mice. And then what you're trying to figure out is how much they share grass. If there's grass here, so they're sharing these three things, all have to share one piece of grass or one patch of grass. The cows eat it, the deer eat it, the mice might live in it, they might eat it. But these things, if all of a sudden more grass grows, great. Then there can be more cows, there can be more deer, there can be more mice. But if all of a sudden grass starts to disappear and gets more patchy, then cows will have to move somewhere else. They need food elsewhere. Maybe the mice disappear because they have to go somewhere else. So now there's only deer left in that area. Sure, the deer might survive fine, but what about all the animals, the things that eat the cows, the things that eat the mice? Well, now they have to move to a new area. That's where resources are a big thing. Resources are limited, and when there's not enough to go around, things start changing, and not always for the better. So, that will be it for today. And one thing I would like to ask for you is if you have any questions or comments, to leave them down below. Be sure to like the video so you can find it easier, or maybe you just like the video. And finally, subscribe so you don't miss any more content and you can find the channel easier to see things when they first come out. Thank you again for coming, and have a great day.